I've been making sure my tomato seedlings get all the care that I can give them, but the leaves are still turning yellow. What do I do? This is a common question when growing tomato seedlings, and the answer is actually a lot more simple than you might think it is. The first thing that we have to look at is whether or not these are the true leaves that are turning yellow and giving us so much worry. 99% of the times, the leaves that are turning yellow on your tomato seedlings, whether this be your first year or not, are those cotyledon leaves, and that's what we call that false pair of leaves. It's the very first set that comes up out of the soil when your seedling is germinating and growing. That's not the true set of leaves, and it's pretty common for this very first set, those cotyledon leaves, to dry up, turn yellow, and fall off of your plant at some point. So when most people ask the question, why my tomato seedlings are turning yellow, that's going to be the most common issue right there. And I'm going to show you guys, if that's what you have going on, what you can do to reduce the amount of sugar that's getting absorbed through those cotyledon leaves since they're about ready to die off, and then you can help ensure that that sugar is then going into the viable true leaf sets of your tomato plant. I'll talk about that right now, and then we'll talk about yellowing in the true leaf sets. So let's take a look at these cotyledon leaves and see what we've got going on. You can see that this first set of leaves right here on this tomato seedling are yellowing. They're turning almost white in color. Now these are the cotyledon leaves. You can see that they have a distinct shape difference compared to the other leaves in all of our tomatoes. All we've got to do for these is just snip those right off as they start to decay. And like I said, this is going to help make sure that there's no sugar being used up by those leaf sets that could be going into other parts of the plant instead. Interesting enough, we only have this issue on our Roma tomatoes and then our beefsteak tomatoes. But looking at all of our other tomatoes, the Early Girl and Cherokee Purple, those don't have any yellowing whatsoever on them. So as I said, I'm just going to go through, prune all of these off. A lot of the times they will fall off by themselves, and this might not be needed. But if they are yellowing a lot and not falling off of the plants, this can help just encourage them a little bit more in their growth. I haven't really seen many videos on YouTube of this, so I hope you guys find this helpful. At this point, these leaves are just not doing any good for the plant, so I really just advise to chop them off of there and get rid of them. Well, we do have one Cherokee Purple that is losing color in it, and all of the rest look pretty good. Beautiful. So far the Early Girl tomatoes and Cherokee Purple are doing the best. The worst ones that we have out of the whole group are the beefsteak tomatoes. For some reason, those aren't doing too hot. Very happy with the seedlings this year, and it looks like we'll have plenty of tomato plants to grow in the garden. I'm very excited for the Cherokee Purple. That's this darker green colored one right here. Super excited to grow those. They are a huge heirloom variety. The tomatoes are regularly over a pound each. So excited to see how those do. Now that we covered the cotyledon leaves, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what might be causing yellowing leaves on your true sets for your tomato plants. Now that we've gotten all of our yellow cotyledon leaves off of the plant that were stealing sugar from our true sets of leaves, let's talk about yellowing on your true sets of leaves, and we can narrow it down to a couple of different causes for that. We're going to start with the amount of light that you have. You can be giving your seedlings either too much light or too little light. Take a look at if your seedlings are leaning one way or another, or if they are very leggy and don't appear to be strong whatsoever. Then we're going to need to add more light to your seedling grow space, wherever that might be. If they are getting too much light, then you're going to be essentially burning off the plant. So if they feel dry to the touch at all, and you are getting a lot of yellowing around not only the inside but some curling around the outside of those leaves too, that can kind of be a little bit of a telltale sign that they're getting too much light. But too much light is a lot more rare than too little light, because these seedlings, believe it or not, usually need more light during this stage than they actually need while they're growing out in the garden. They need a lot of light as seedlings, which is kind of incredible. Most people wouldn't think that because they're so small and tiny, but if you think about all of the root development and growth that is happening within the short period of time, there's not a big root system that is pulling up all of those nutrients, and they do rely strongly on photosynthesis and that light to get the strength to grow. To put it in layman's terms, that's why they need so much light as seedlings. So too much light, pretty rare. Your problem, if it is a lighting problem, could be too little light. The next thing is watering. If you're watering this too much, you can also really create an environment that's hard for these tomato seedlings to grow in. And an easy way to tell if you're watering too much or too little is by picking up your container or tray or whatever you have them in when the water is dried out, and both when it's full. That way you get a sense of how much water is in that container, so you can maybe narrow down your watering schedule a little bit tighter than it was before. So if we haven't watered the plants yet and the soil is totally dry, we're just going to pick this up and have a sense of how heavy it is. And the same thing goes towards after we water it and the water is soaked up through the soil, you see it's adequately watered. You want to pick it up again and see how heavy it is. Just after doing that a couple of times, you guys will be able to gauge how much water you should be giving your plants here. Also, I covered it in a previous video. If you're getting a lot of fungus or white mold growth, that is a sign of over watering. This can also cause yellowing of leaves. The next thing that we want to talk about is fertilization. You know, a lot of people say, well, if they're turning yellow, it might be a phosphorus issue, or they're not getting enough potassium. That NPK is just not enough. They're not getting enough. Well, seedlings don't need a lot of nutrients at this stage. So why might they not be getting enough nutrients? Commonly, it's not going to be an issue, but if you did buy a seed starting mix that doesn't have any compost in it, it doesn't have any fertilizer whatsoever, there's none of that holy trinity of nutrients is not in the soil at all, then that might be a possibility that your seedlings are not getting enough nutrients. In that case, what we want to do, it's a really quick and simple fix. We want to take a fertilizer, NPK fertilizer, whatever specified brand that you like the most, it's all up to you. It doesn't matter. As long as you have something of each substance and you don't have any zeros in there. So you might get a 300 or a 201 or a 015. Whatever that mixture is, just make sure there is no zeros. You want some of every one of those compounds in it when fertilizing your tomato seedlings and other seedlings that might need some nutrients added to the soil. Again, this is rare. It's most commonly a watering issue that's causing yellowing of the leaves. But in the case where you might not have any nutrients, add in that fertilizer mixture at half a dose. You want to do half a dose, not too much of it, because over fertilizing can actually be very damaging to these seedlings as well. So I know it seems kind of difficult and hard to intercept what the actual problem is, and it can be, but throughout your years of gardening, that's when you're going to realize what your plants are telling you. And you'll be able to look back at your care that you've been giving your plants over the last few weeks and say, well, I did actually water it more times than I did last week, this week, and now right away they're starting to look kind of wilty and they're drooping over a lot, really hard on me. Or, I haven't watered in over a week, and now my tomato seedlings are almost touching the soil, tipped right over. I've had that before in the past. Well, they need water right away. Over the years of experience, you guys will start to learn how to read what your plants are telling you. That's what I'm trying to say. There's no one answer cures all, or one thing cures all. Every tomato seedling set that you're growing out in your garden might be a little bit different. There's so many different variabilities. So that is why as gardeners, we're constantly evolving, changing, growing, and learning. So I want to thank you guys for learning and taking the steps that you need in order to make sure that your gardens are more successful and that you're growing better food crops for yourselves, because it really does take a lot of learning to be a gardener. Trust me, am not there. I was going to have a video on this, but I'm just going to talk to you guys about this right now because it came up in my mind. I, being an imperfect gardener, I think I might have killed almost a whole tray of kohlrabi and broccoli. I think the dinosaur kale and Russian kale might be able to make it out here. It's going to be close. But what happened was I have these out here getting acclimated to the weather, and I'm preparing them to go into the garden this week. But we had a really, really strong frost, like unbelievably. I think I woke up in the morning this morning and it was 24 degrees outside, and my mind froze. I'm like, ugh, I forgot that I had that whole tray of seedlings out in the greenhouse, and I was hoping there was maybe a little bit of hope that it was in the greenhouse, that it would stay warm enough, but I came in and the temperature was 30 degrees in here. So it was most likely 30 degrees for several hours, resulting in a freeze on these plants. Now, these are early season vegetables, being that they're kale, kohlrabi, and broccoli. But I came in here and the whole thing, everything was frozen. So with that, I'm saying we do make mistakes. I made a big mistake last night. Thankfully, I've got another tray of them growing, and then I can also sow them directly in the garden at this point, so I will get crops out of them. But it's just little things like that that happen every now and then that we have to set back into our minds to make sure we don't let them happen again. That was a rookie mistake on my part. I don't know what happened. I totally forgot that this tray was out here. Went to bed, woke up, and like I said, I didn't realize until I checked the temperature in the morning to see what kind of work I'd be able to do for the day out here in the garden. Saw that it was 24 degrees and almost pooped my pants. But thankfully, it's just a couple of seedlings. I've got plenty of seeds down in the basement. It's just going to set me back a couple of weeks of their growth if they don't take off. I will have a video, though. I'll probably document it and show what might happen if these seedlings freeze and see if they totally die or not. I think they're going to have a pretty rough time because they were totally froze. So we're always growing and learning as gardeners. We learn from our mistakes. We learn how to make things more efficient. Each and every year we're kind of figuring out how to make things work better. And with me, I'm now diving deep into vegetable gardening more than I ever have before. I've been growing vegetables for many years, but I've just had a few patches here or there. But this year we've got 3 full raised garden beds going in with vegetables. And whenever we buy our new home, I plan on getting anywhere between 10 to 20 raised garden beds for just our vegetable crops alone. So you guys are going to be learning a lot through my mistakes, my inefficiencies, and that's what I really hope to share with you guys. I don't want to put on a fake blanket of what I go through as a gardener, because nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not an amazing master gardener who knows everything. I just really love to work with these plants and grow and try growing in different ways that people haven't grown before too, and just kind of experiment with the whole process. No, leaving these seedlings out here overnight was not an experiment. That was an absolute failure. I don't know how I did that, but I love experimenting and inspiring creativity in the garden, and that's what I hope I can do with you guys. So like I said before, thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you found some entertainment and maybe even learned a little bit through this video. Please hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed watching these tomato seedlings get chopped up a little bit, doing a little prune here and there. It's always good to do. Thank you all so much for watching. If you do subscribe, hit that bell button so you're notified of all of our updates that we have going on with these plants. I hope you guys are not freezing your seedlings overnight like I did. Happy gardening, and we'll see you in the next episode.